What if humans had bones as strong as steel? Imagine a world where the human skeleton is no longer made of calcium-based bone, but of a material as strong as steel. Suddenly, every single one of us becomes a walking, talking, unbreakable structure. The possibilities sound incredible, but so do the consequences. So, what would change in our lives if our bones were as tough as steel? Let's start with the basics. Normal human bones are already remarkable. They're lightweight, self-healing, and pound for pound, they can be stronger than concrete. But steel is in a whole different league. Steel can handle enormous loads, high impacts, and extreme pressures without breaking. If our skeletons were made of steel-strength material, we could survive falls from great heights, take hits that would normally crush bones, and maybe even withstand car crashes without a single fracture. On day one of this new reality, accidents that usually send people to the hospital for broken bones would no longer be life-threatening. Sports like football, rugby, and martial arts would become more intense because players could push their bodies far beyond current limits without fear of snapping a bone. Gymnastics would reach superhuman levels. Parkour athletes could leap off rooftops and land without shattering their legs. Professional fighters could trade blows with devastating force and keep going. But the real magic of steel-strong bones would show up in survival situations. Imagine falling down a cliff. While hiking, you might still get bruised or cut, but your skeletal structure would be intact. Soldiers and rescue workers could survive explosions or debris impacts that would kill a normal human. Construction workers could withstand heavy objects falling on them without getting crushed. In a way, we would be living in a world where human durability reached comic book levels. However, this dream comes with a price. Bones are not just for structure, they're also alive. They store calcium, produce blood cells, and adapt to stress. If we replace their natural composition with steel-strength material, how would our bodies handle weight, metabolism, and biology? Steel is much heavier than bone. Even if we had a lighter but equally strong alloy, our total body weight could increase by 50% or more. This means moving, running, and jumping would require far more energy. Our muscles would need to be stronger just to move our own bodies. Without that adaptation, we might actually feel slower and tire out faster. There's also the problem of joints. Having steel-strong bones doesn't automatically make our cartilage, ligaments, and tendons stronger. These soft tissues could still tear under extreme force. In other words, while your bones might survive a massive fall, your muscles and ligaments might still get badly damaged. Well, you'd walk away without fractures, but you might still be in pain and unable to move properly for a while. Another interesting consequence is in medicine. Orthopedic surgery as we know it would change forever. There would be no need for metal plates, screws, or bone grafts to fix fractures, because fractures simply wouldn't happen. But this also means that injuries involving bones, like breaking them to access certain tissues in surgery, would be much harder. Doctors would need specialized equipment just to cut through a steel-strength skeleton. Recovery from other injuries might still take time, because while bones are unbreakable, surrounding tissues would still need to heal. Think about daily life too. Airport security scanners might detect your skeleton as a mass of metal-like density. X-rays in hospitals could become harder to interpret because steel-strength material blocks radiation differently from calcium. You might even trigger metal detectors in some scenarios depending on the exact composition of your new bones. Now, how would evolution deal with this? In the natural world, animals evolve body structures that balance strength with weight. Birds have hollow bones to make flight possible. Humans evolved a skeleton strong enough to handle everyday stresses, while keeping weight low enough for endurance running. If we suddenly had steel-strength bones, we might sacrifice agility for durability. This could have mixed effects on our survival rate for avoiding injury, but possibly worse for activities that require speed and stamina. Our lifestyle could change dramatically. Extreme sports would explode in popularity. Cliff diving from hundreds of meters, high-speed downhill mountain biking, without protective gear, and even stunt driving could be everyday hobbies. Military training might take advantage of our indestructible skeletons, creating soldiers who can withstand impacts and carry much heavier loads without risk of bone damage. But let's not forget the social consequences. If humans couldn't break bones anymore, how would that affect violence and safety? Physical fights might become more brutal because breaking bones would no longer be a way to disable someone. Law enforcement and self-defense strategies would have to evolve. In sports, referees would need to monitor more for internal injuries rather than fractures. The UFC octagon might turn into something far more intense and far more dangerous for soft tissues. And then there's the question of aging. Natural bones lose density over time, leading to conditions like osteoporosis. With steel-strength bones, osteoporosis wouldn't exist. Elderly people would keep their skeletal integrity, reducing fall-related deaths dramatically. This could greatly extend not just lifespan, but healthy lifespan, allowing people to stay active well into old age. However, arthritis and joint wear could still be major issues. Since bones aren't the only parts of the skeleton system that degrade over time, from a technological perspective, having a population with steel-strength bones could inspire new industries. Clothing, footwear, and protective gear might be redesigned to account for the increased body weight and durability. Medical imaging machines might be upgraded to work with denser skeletal structures. Even architecture could change if construction workers with indestructible bones could take on more dangerous tasks without fear of injury. Now, here's a fascinating twist. Our new skeletons could open the door to more radical enhancements. If we already had bones as strong as steel, scientists might push for additional genetic or technological modifications, like muscles with greater strength, tendons with higher elasticity, or even reinforced skin. Over time, humanity could evolve, or engineer itself into something closer to a superhuman species. However, we'd have to watch out for overconfidence. Steel-strong bones might make us feel invincible, but our internal organs would still be vulnerable. A high-speed car crash might not break your bones, but it could still cause fatal internal bleeding. Falls from extreme heights might leave your skeleton intact, but your brain could still suffer from the sudden stop. So while we'd be much harder to injure, we wouldn't be indestructible. In the end, having bones as strong as steel would change nearly every part of human life, from how we play, to how we work, to how we age. It would make us more resilient, but also force us to rethink our approach to health, safety, and even ethics. Would we use this gift to build a better world, or would it lead us to take bigger risks with devastating consequences? So here's the real question. If you woke up tomorrow with bones as strong as steel, what would be the first thing you'd do?